Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cityview Sitdown. My name is Douglas Hallam, the executive pastor at Cityview Bible Church and your host of the Sitdown. Just so awesome to have brought you so many amazing folks from our Cityview family, and today is no different. Have another opportunity today to talk to a good friend of mine, somebody who I've known for the last 16 years as we've been working on planting Cityview Bible Church. I said 16, it's really 15, that's okay. Working for the last 15 years to get Cityview Bible Church planted. One of the first families I met was this guy. He's a charter member of Cityview Bible Church, was on our first elder board, and he's one of our most recent elders to come on. You've heard his story about his family, but I want to talk a little bit more about our time together, the things that we've learned over the course of 14 years of having the church planted, and just get a chance to share a little bit with you about who Mike and his family are. So with that, I want to introduce to you my good friend, Mike Knipstein. Mike, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. So a little bit about me. If you haven't heard or watched the other video, my name's Mike Knipstein, and as Douglas said, my wife and I, Heather, have been members of Cityview for many, many years. Our oldest is 15, so I count 15 years because there was the planning portion of the church.
That's right.
And we cannot forget that.
No.
We cannot forget the early morning, very early morning planning meetings.
We would meet I was working at Starbucks at the time, but we would meet at my Starbucks so that I could be at work and come over and join those conversations. But it was a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was a good experience. Would certainly entertain doing it again because that's our heart as a church, as I like to say.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, the podcast we're doing, you've heard a few of them, and so. What we do over the course of the last 31 episodes, amazing, we've already done 31 of these, but we just give people a chance to get to know the folks who make Cityview. And so, like I said, and like you were kind of communicating, like 15 years worth of working on Cityview. There's nobody who is Cityview more than you and me and Keith and the team that was working on the plant side. So grateful for you. And so tell us about your family. Give us, again, I know you just kind of did that interview, and we kind of put it out there for the elder testimony or whatever before the vote, but maybe we have a little different audience. So tell us a little bit about the family. I know you've got Heather and the 3 girls.
Sure, Heather, 3 girls, and we just recently 2 weeks ago added a dog, which is so much fun. You see the smile on my face.
Is his name COVID?
That we should have.
You should have.
Actually, Heather wanted to name it something. I can't remember, and I was like, that's kind of a reference to COVID, and I've had a bad enough year. Let's not do that. So.
I can just see you on the back porch when it gets out. COVID!
Yeah, COVID! Come here. COVID's everywhere. And everybody's like, I don't know why. So a little bit about my family. As I mentioned, my wife, Heather, we've been married for 19 years now.
Yeah.
We are high school sweethearts, as I shared.
Yep.
And usually when I say that, everybody goes, oh. Both born and raised, a little small town.
Yeah.
It is the same number of people now as it was back then. Wow. I mean, you're a small town kid.
Yep.
You understand that.
Yep. Tell me that town. I don't
Lexington.
remember. Lexington.
About an hour.
Okay.
Everybody goes, oh, Kentucky? No. I have an accent, but not that bad. No, it's about an hour east of here. For the barbecue aficionados, Snow's Barbecue is world famous in Lexington. Mm-hmm. I actually knew the gentleman that was named Snow.
You knew Snow.
And as a young child, my dad would give me $10 and say, ride down to the Mercantile and buy barbecue from Mr. Snow. And now his wife, Tootsie, this is like not even a Cityview thing.
Listen.
His wife, Tootsie, is now the pit master.
Yeah.
And she's like 90-something years old.
Yeah. So if Texas Monthly is listening, call Mike.
That's right. I know.
He knows Lexington and Snow and the whole thing.
So anyway, Heather and I have been married for 19 years, high school sweethearts. We moved up, or I started, with Williams County EMS. I'm the director now, but I was am a paramedic still. Have worked for them for 27 years. So I've been in this community for 27 years. That blows my mind. We have 3 kids. Ava's our oldest. She's 15 years old. She is our incredible athlete. As I was sharing with Douglas before, she's a track runner, and we're filming this when the cold front is coming in, and it's supposed to be like in the single digits on Saturday, and we got the text message that they canceled the track meet, so darn. But Ava's 15. She goes to Stony Point High School right over here. And then Balin and Hope are our two youngest. We always lump them together for some reason. Everybody goes, "Are they twins?" And we're like, "No, they're 18 months apart." I'll share a little bit of their history later. But Balin is our middle daughter, and she's going to kill me if I get this wrong. She's 12 years old, and then Hope now is 10 years old. So, and I'll share
That's hard to believe, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my daughter's almost 15. She'll be 15 in just a few weeks. And just thinking about already, like, of course, I remember Ava and you remember Kinsey back from those early days. Balin and Hope, and just remembering them coming into your family. And, oh my gosh, crazy.
Ava drives us to church now because she's got her learner's permit, which is, I said the same thing.
I've got a few weeks for that.
Yeah. The parking is fun, let me tell you that. She'll love that I say that.
Well, we have we do have the appointment to get the permit.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking of hiding it.
Yeah. And then they even send them a little driver's license, a little permit. And
I don't like it.
Yeah, I officially felt old then. When you were calling the insurance company about putting your kid on the insurance, one, you're thinking, please don't let it be too much. Luckily, you don't have to put them on until they actually have a driver's license.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I know I can ask my dad because he's my insurance agent, but true. Do I have to put her on yet?
No, you don't, actually.
Okay.
That was a...
Right. Yeah.
Now,
I got a year to think about.
Yeah, June it will quickly change. I'm sure my rates will go up.
And I know we'll talk about this too, but we have to say that what that means, Douglas, is you have a year to put away some money. So that you can be ready for it and it doesn't surprise you.
How did you know I would probably say that, or at least I was probably thinking that?
You were thinking it for sure.
No, absolutely.
You were thinking it. I remember, I tell you, Mike, you guys, you and Heather were some of the first people we met who were coming to Cityview back when we started. And we met you because we joined Matt and Tiffany Buss's small group that was meeting in your living room.
Yeah.
And so we were hanging out at your house before Cityview was anything.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even really had like vision meetings and stuff, and we were meeting in your living room. Yeah. But I have this distinct memory one night of you taking a phone call in the kitchen of that house over there in Stone Oak. Do you know what I'm about to say?
Go ahead.
You were canceling something with AT&T or with DirecTV. There was some service that was coming into your house that you were canceling, or they had overcharged you. I don't remember exactly what it was, but all I remember is I heard you in there say, "Ma'am, I just called you to complain about $2.50. Do you think I'm going to ask you to add services to my house right now?"
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
It was so great, man. It was so great. I learned a lot from it, honestly, because we went through FPU with you guys the first time. Yeah. Or I don't know if it was the first time for you. It was the first time for us. But we went through it there at your house and certainly learned a lot about talking to folks on the phone. Anyway.
Yeah.
You got a passion for that.
It was funny when I was coming back onto the elder board, I was giving John Garrett a hard time. I told him, and Douglas comes in once a month and gives us a rundown of the finances. And I can remember when I was on the elder board the first time, and poor Douglas, Stacy Fox and I, and Douglas knows where I'm going on this. We debated about a copier. It had to be 2 months. I swear it had to be 2 months. We debated about that copier. And the sad part is 15 years later, I don't even remember the result of the debate. But I told Garrett, I was like, hey, the first month that Douglas comes in, I'm just going to pull out the budget and go, where's the copier? I need to talk about the copier. So, that
was fun times for sure.
Yeah.
We really did. We debated whether or not to buy it or lease it, or we were so early in our church, and finances are uncertain in a young church.
So,
for sure.
So we were talking about, man, I think
we're all over, but that's good. That's I love
Grab
the
your popcorn,
podcast structure because exactly. I love the podcast structure because it's unstructured, and this is exactly how these conversations tend to go. No, but we were talking about your family, and you were talking about Ava being 15 and the athlete, and you talked about Hope and Balin, and man, just thinking through, you guys have been here 27 years in the community. Now, y'all were at Hill Country Bible Church, Pflugerville.
Correct.
Is that where where we connected with you?
Yeah. So Heather and I were attending Hill Country Pflugerville when they were in the strip center. This was before they even built the building. So we were attending there.
Then early 2000s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They built their facility. We moved, and then we went over there. And I can remember sitting there. I think it was Father's Day, actually. And Pflugerville had announced that they were going to do a plant or two. And some of y'all know that story. They actually planted two churches almost at the same time. That's
just
crazy.
a few months apart.
Yeah. So anyway, they said that they were planting a church or two, and then one of the spots that they were looking at was Round Rock. Well, we're living in Round Rock at the time, so it's kind of a natural thing for us. And Keith actually got up there on Father's Day and preached. And Keith, when he was 28 years old, 28, he was probably 27 then. When he was 27 years old, was still just a dynamic preacher, would grasp you. I mean, and I remember sitting and watching him, and I looked at Heather and I said, well, if that dude's the pastor, then we're good to go. And then like the next week they announced, okay, Keith Ferguson, who preached last week, is going to be the church plant, the pastor for Round Rock, Hill Country Bible Church, Round Rock North. Yeah. So yeah, we were on board immediately with that, and we're part of the, like you said, part of the original families, the 100 people that were sitting in the small little gym.
That's right. That's right.
Even I drove past the YMCA the other day, and she goes, "Oh, the church." Yeah,
it's something else. Well, and knowing, you know, that we were the first church that had met there in a long time.
Yeah.
And but now behind us is a church and one of our church plants.
Yeah.
Now they've been displaced a little bit lately. They're here. They meet on our campus on Sunday afternoons right now. But our Spanish-speaking church plant, Unity Bible Church, meets there, and just, you know, we can't say enough good about the YMCA.
Yeah, I remember those discussions. I mean, the Y was pretty resistant to having a church because they'd had some not so good experiences with churches, unfortunately. And you and Keith, I think Pat Burns and Toby Dickinson were on the board at the time, and just did a great job of just developing that relationship and mending that relationship with the Y for really the Big C church, not just us, so to speak. So that was awesome. So welcoming. I mean, it was kind of odd. They were resistant at first, then we get in there. And it's like, hey, can we use this room? Sure.
Yeah.
What about, hey, you're building that over there. What about that? Yeah. And we go over there. So it was awesome.
Yeah,
great
for
relationships.
Sure. Well, and you and Heather, like in the early days, y'all were our children's ministry workhorses for sure. Over in that child development center that they had across the parking lot. Tell a little about that, about setting up and tearing down. And
that was interesting.
Yeah.
So it's much like our children's ministry now, but it was their child development center where they had, during the week, they had preschool. And so we would go in on Sunday mornings, usually about 6 a.m. or so, and just start setting up everything. And the deal that we had with the YMCA was the kids couldn't use or touch any of the YMCA toys.
Those teachers would let us know if we did too.
Yeah, so Heather and I affectionately
shout out to those teachers.
Yeah, we affectionately call that Barbie Gate. So we would literally, we cover everything. You put a sheet over something, and that's really going to keep a 2-year-old out of it. Yes. And we would get emails during the week like, "Hey, the Barbie with the pink dress is missing."
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, so let me go find the Barbie with the pink dress in our box. And I'd go up there and find it and walk over and go, here you go. Thanks for letting us use your room. And
my gosh.
But that was part of building that relationship.
Yeah, it was.
But so, it was interesting. So then they let us set up on Saturday nights. That was awesome because we didn't have to get there so early. But great relationship. I mean, that was just an affirmation to me. I went to a small country church. A church plant usually meant a church was splitting up, not necessarily multiplying. And that was eye-opening to us to see that a church does not have to be in a building. It doesn't have to be in a building. It certainly doesn't have to be in an established facility like we are in now. So that was good for me to see and a good growth in my maturity as a Christian. So.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned, and I know you've told a little bit of this story through your testimony for Elder, but also just over time you told it a lot. You mentioned a second ago you were going to talk a little bit more about Balin and Hope and tell that story. They're 18 months apart. Why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, this is the part where I got to make it through so I don't cry. I'm the crier.
Come on, that's all right.
I can already feel it welling up. So.
I'll be there with you in a minute.
So Heather and I had some fertility issues. Ava's our biological child. We were blessed with her. Continued with those fertility, choked up.
That's all right.
Fertility issues, and kind of said, you know what? You're looking around for Kleenex.
I am.
You're looking
I'm looking to see if the studio has
I'll make it
any.
through it. I probably have one. Anyway, we went through those and finally said, I think it's God telling us we need to do something different.
Yeah.
And at the time, Laura Murray and Aaron, they were putting together, and I always love these informational meetings on foster care. So we thought, hey, we'll go to this informational meeting. And we went to this informational meeting, and they said, hey, here's the deal. If you're in a church, we have this abbreviated course. I guess they trusted us. We have this abbreviated course to where you can go through. It's only on the weekends. And you go through that, and you can become a foster parent. And Heather and I prayed about it, both super led to do that. So we went through the course. Ava was about 2 or 3 years old at the time. And we said, okay, here, you can do all kinds of stipulations with foster care. And we said, okay, we'll do a child younger than Ava because we're new to it. And,
Sure.
To be frank, we're kind of ignorant. And we're like, we'll just, we'll put all these. It was kind of us trying to box God in. That was the funny part behind it. We'll put all these stipulations. It's got to be a child younger than Ava, male, female, we don't care, race, we don't care, all that good stuff. So we did that, and I remember you're assigned a counselor or a caseworker, and the caseworker said, okay, appreciate y'all going through all the process and stuff, but here's the deal, like you've really narrowed some stuff down. You got a pretty tight box. You are not going to get a placement. And we had chosen to do foster to adopt. There's different routes you can do. And we said, we'll do foster to adopt. So we picked that. And she's like, yeah, you're just not going to get any placements. Okay, that's fine. We trust what God's got in store. And so we finished our training in December. Heather and I are like, with Ava, we're down, like we had just finished a training, and we're down in Austin eating at like some park or something like that, and my phone rings, and I answer the phone, and it's the caseworker going, hey, we've got a placement. And I'm like, whoa. And we're like, well, crud, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
Like we had just finished a training, so we have like no car seat, no bed, nothing. Because they told us it would be a while, so, usually I'm a planner, and that's kind of an odd thing. So anyway, we said, absolutely, we'll, yes. And so they said, okay, we'll be there at 5 o'clock. And this is like lunch, and I'm like, okay, we've got to go get some stuff. So I lay all Oxenfree to all of our friends. People are amazing, church family.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'll make it through it.
You got it, brother.
So anyway, get all this stuff, bring it home, and 5 o'clock, tell Ava, 5 o'clock, nothing. 6 o'clock, nothing. 7 o'clock, nothing. Well, as I say, when you're a foster parent, there's a story behind the story. So there's a story behind that story that I'll leave for another day. But anyway, 11 o'clock, we get the knock on the door, open the door, and it's our caseworker with Balin. And so anyway, Balin's placed with us. We go through it's always a long process. And, anyway, 18 months later, we end up getting to adopt her, which is awesome. Tears of joy.
Yeah.
And then, so part one, don't try to box God in. He's got a plan. So we do that, and then we say, okay, we've adopted Balin. We went from, 1 kid to 2 kid. That's not 1 + 1. It's like 1 + 10, it feels like. Especially when they're both smaller. All the parents out there hear me on that. And we say, okay, we're going to take a little 6-month break. We're going to take some time off.
Because how old was Balin when she was placed?
She was 2 months old when she was placed with us, and then 18 months later is when we officially adopted her. And then there's all the stuff with fostering, and anybody that's fostered, there's visits and everything else, and all the court proceedings and all that good stuff. So we go through that. We adopt Balin. We say, okay, we're going to take a while off. And then the attorney that represents the child, the ad litem, gives us a call and says, hey, Balin's birth mom is pregnant with another child, and would you consider, fostering her? Well, we know at the time that nothing has changed in her birth family's, what's going on in the family is the best way to put it. So, we have, and I always love this, an attorney, it's like Tuesday, and she goes, I need to know by Friday. And we'll make it noon at Friday. So, we have to make this decision. We know where this is heading, and we have to make this decision within, 72 hours, or, are we going to have another child? Because it's not 9 months. It's boom, here. Well, that answer is easy.
Sure.
And so Hope was placed with us. She was 2 weeks old when she was placed with us. Kind of went through the same process. Her adoption process was a little bit longer. It was about 20 months. There's some other factors that were in there and stuff. But so they're sisters. So anytime you hear Hope and Balin, we just kind of put them together. They're 18 months apart. They look incredibly well. Now they're getting different because Balin is getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
And you can start seeing their personalities and how they look and their looks and stuff. But so anyway, awesome story of how they are a part of our family and just how that all came about.
Well, and really, like you said, a part of the Cityview family.
Yeah.
Because I remember being at the courthouse with you.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment that it was so special for all of us because having walked alongside you, I remember the judge standing up and saying, hey, this is not just the Knipstein family.
Yeah.
Why don't we have all of these people come up and stand with you?
Yeah.
So, I know, me too, Mike. No, it was just such a sweet moment to celebrate with you guys. And man, we're for you. I love your tender heart for your girls and, that story.
Yeah, it was, the judge literally was like, she came up and she's like, who are all these people? Because I've got work friends there, and in the EMS business, we wear uniforms, so they're obvious.
Yeah.
But there are literally 30 or 40 people, Keith, elders, playdate families, all that. And she's like, who are all these people?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's our family.
Yeah. Yeah. So good, man. So good. Well, I tell you what's something crazy. Okay, so this is off the topic of your family, but just adoption and foster in general. Like, people won't believe me when I tell them this, but the truth is that we don't really plan when these interviews are going to happen. We've got a list of 8 or 10 folks that we're kind of working with on timing and everything. Your episode 32, last week was episode 31. Episode 31 was Scott and Bree Martindale, who have just stepped into the foster world in the course of the last 6 or 8 months or a year. And I just always believe that, like you just said, God's writing a bigger story.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have to imagine that somebody's going to hear these 2 episodes back to back and be just really moved by adoption or moved by foster or moved by the opportunity. Scott and Bree talked a lot last week, and I'm sure you and Heather could talk a lot about it too, but when you're fostering, the need for some respite and some help and some care for, just in general. Like you said, you're not going from 1 to 2, you're going from 1 to 10 is what it feels like.
And with the foster care, there's just a lot that goes along with it.
Yeah.
You've got court dates, you've got visits with the birth parents, you've got all those other things that, your biological child, you don't have to try to manage and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I saw Scott and Bree. Scott's a Round Rock firefighter, and we were opening a fire station with them, and I saw Scott and Bree there, and I saw their little girl that's with them, and it was just awesome to see that. And so proud of them for taking that step.
No doubt.
Many people in our church have taken that step, probably more than I know about, and it's just it's awesome to see. And I tell people if you're thinking about it, just take the step.
Yeah.
Take the step.
Yeah.
Look into it. I was the reluctant one to go to the informational meeting, and so now I'm so happy that I did because of the bigger story, as you said, the bigger story that God is writing that I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah, so. Who knew? Yeah, so you're challenging people just go to the source or go to the information or pick up the phone, and I would say pick up the phone and call us at Cityview. We'll put you in touch with Mike and Heather,
absolutely,
and Scott and Bree from last week. We'll help. We want to help because our heart for people, when we say every man, woman, and child, we mean every man, woman, and child. There are men, women, and children who need the testimony of adoption and foster in their story. Yeah. And so we're ready to help with that.
We've been adopted into God's family, and why not adopt somebody into yours?
So good. So
Absolutely.
good. Thanks for that. Well, there's a few other interesting parts of that story, of course, about your story with Cityview. You were an elder for 3 years from the start, and we wrap up your 3-year term, and like the building that you and I are sitting in now that we worship in is really a product of your leadership coming together with a building committee and a land committee and the whole thing to find out how to get this building built. So tell us a little bit about that story. And we laugh because we had you step off the board and just really you never did.
Yeah. I served the 8-year elder term, as I like to call it.
Yes,
so it was fun.
Yeah.
So I was on the board, and the 3rd year I was on the board, I was the elder chairman. And about a year and a half into it, we're talking about, the churches, we've got, it's growing, and I think I can't remember what year we moved from the small gym to the big gym, and
a couple of
that
years
all-nighter.
in,
do you remember that all-nighter we pulled there?
I remember that.
Putting that thing, and wow, that was.
Because the YMCA had opened that, like if you go to the YMCA today, you see the big, full-size gymnasium that they divide into two, the whole thing. Well, that was our space.
Yeah.
But it wasn't our space yet. And they had given us that opportunity.
Yeah, we literally showed up at like 6 or 7 p.m. that night, installed speakers, all
Lights.
that stuff overnight, and then the next morning from gym to him at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I think that was on a shirt. If
I
not,
think
it
at
should
some
be.
point it was,
But yeah, I mean, that morning we had service, and I just
Yeah.
remember looking up at Douglas and going, how is he awake? Like, you've been up for 24 hours.
Well, we totally had, and I remember that so vividly. Having my wife, I had told her, of course, the best laid plans. I'll be home probably 2 or 3. I'll get a few hours of sleep. It'll be fine. And I remember calling her at like 6:30 or 7, saying, "You got to bring clothes.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna have to jump
I
in
can
the
remember the
shower
worship
here."
team showing up and going,
Yeah.
have y'all been here all night? And it's like, what?
Yeah.
So
for
anyway,
sure.
I digress.
That's part of the story.
Part of the story. So yeah, we'd moved into the big gym, started seeing more numbers and people coming, which is just a huge blessing. So we start talking about, okay, what the next step, and the next step is, well, we need to build a building. Well, in order to have a building, you got to buy land. So then I'm the elder chairman, and we start having those discussions, and I'm a bit of a nerd, and so I start reading up on all kinds of stuff on church financing, how to land acquisitions and everything else. And so I'm coming up on my end of being on the elder board, and Keith goes, "Hey, I got a question for you. Let me take you to lunch." Douglas, coffee and lunch, you better be careful. That's a recruitment lunch.
We call that walking too close to the soundboard.
Yeah. So anyway, he asked if I would be interested in leading kind of the acquisition of the land. So sure, and we get connected with some commercial real estate agents, and we pick one. He's a member over at Hill Country, Austin, or Northwest at the time, Austin now. Al Martin, great guy. He pulls like 10 or 12 different properties for us to look at, and so we spend a day. I think it might have been like today, driving around. The current elder board and Al, we're driving around looking at all these different properties. And the funny part is I can drive down University, I can drive down A.W. Grimes, and I can tell you, we looked at that property, here's why we didn't like it. We looked at that property, here's why we didn't like it. We look at all these properties, and we really just don't like any of them. It just doesn't feel right. I don't know why it didn't. Well, I do now, but it just doesn't feel right. We had started a relationship with the Avery family. Keith just knew Charles Avery. A great family. You'll hear more about that, but just an awesome family. And Keith just had a relationship with Charles, and we knew about this development out here, the Avery Center development. And we had Charles had sat down with Keith and shared some of the vision of this area, and they had 2 plots that they had labeled church.
Yeah.
So we talked with Mr. Avery Charles and said, hey, what's your thought on us looking at some of that land and, seeing if we want to purchase it? Charles he was a great guy and said, absolutely, let's go out there and we'll start looking at it. And we looked at a piece of property on the other side of A.W. Grimes over there by the Texas A&M school, 10-acre tract, and just didn't feel it. And then we came over here, and the original land area was about a half a mile down the road. Perfect little square, awesome. we said, yep, we're interested in this, and what's your price? And so we negotiate the price, and we start going through our due diligence process to make sure, important things is their electricity, water, sewer, and all that stuff. And by God's grace, there wasn't a sewer line to that. And we're like, well, we need a sewer line.
We're going to need sewer.
And they're like, well, the nearest sewer line is way over there, and that's going to be a lot of money. And so we're like, deal's done. This isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So we'll keep looking. We'll go back and look at the other 12 properties again. And then Charles is like, wait, time out. How about this? The corner that we're sitting on now, he said, how about that piece of property? So we come down here, we look at it, we're like, it's a half a mile. It's a rock's throw, no big deal. And he goes, okay. We negotiate the price. And then he says, well, there's no sewer on this line or this land, but don't worry. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to so here's how this land deal worked. This is a good deal for us. We purchase some of it. They donate some of it. We purchased 13 acres. They donated 7 acres. And then they took the money that we used to purchase it, and they paid for to have the sewer line run here. So they ran a sewer line from Harrington Elementary over to here. Didn't cost us anything. That's that's the Avery's heart.
Yeah, it's their heart. They know they're going to have to do it anyway for this development over time.
Yeah.
And gosh, God just working through Charles and his family and his siblings.
And then the story even gets funnier. So we go through the campaign for the land, and it's a 2-year campaign, and we've negotiated the purchase price, and I think it was a little bit over $2 million, $2-something million. And we're like, okay, that's our campaign goal. So we do the campaign, and we get commitments of $1.94 million. That sticks in my head. And so we get that, and we're like, hey, no, God's in control. We're going to trust God on this. We're going to walk through this. And we get a call from John Jr., Avery. Says, hey, why don't y'all just come on in? We want to have a chat with y'all, see how things are going. And Keith and I are like, okay. We've usually met with them about once a month just to see, to update and stay in contact. And we walk in, and John goes, well, hey, we got a proposition for you here. Like, there's a roadway going in over here, and the land is like it's a rectangle right now. We want to take the land and kind of cut it and move it, and it says, if you look at our land layout now, it says this weird triangle out there. That's because there's some land or some stuff for a road back there. But we've made the deal with you. We're not gonna change that. We're not gonna cancel anything. If you say no, we move on down the road. And remember, the purchase price was this, and our campaign was this. And I'll never forget the day. John, he goes, now we're willing to negotiate price, and Keith and I are like, bing. And we're like, well, how about $1.94 million? And they're like, sure, not a problem. So we did some more due diligence, make sure that didn't mess with anything. The architect's like, you're just moving parking spots, take the deal. So by God's grace, we raised 1.94. They were super open to that, and then we purchased the land, and 2 years later paid it off.
Amazing.
So, amazing how that works together.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing opportunity to walk through all of that with you and with the board, but also, just with the church, like to be able to come out here and, it was a day not too much different than this. It was about like this. It was super cold. We don't get them very often, but when we do, they're cold. And we had set up, and we had an opportunity to burn the note on the dirt, right? Like to let go.
There's a picture of that downstairs. I always look at it.
It's so awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we purchased the land, paid the land off, burned the note. That was an awesome day. And then obviously you got land. Let's put something on it. So I transitioned from land acquisition to then building committee. That was a little bit, well, not easier. That was just, oh man, it's amazing. Yeah. I'm a paramedic by trade, and then went into this, and I learned so much. My knees were raw from praying, and we were sharing some stories coming in here. So Douglas and I spent a lot of time on the building stuff.
A lot of time.
It's a lot of it is AV stuff. So anyway, we go through that process. The building committee, awesome group of people. I can remember even before we had the building committee, we had to do master planning. That was like the number one thing we heard from people is like, don't put something just in the middle of the land because you're going to mess it up. So we had hired an architectural firm, Jackson Galloway, and Scott Caldwell and I. We were still over at the old office off of Main Street. And we would sit there at this little table about no bigger than this, and it was the two architects and Scott and I, and they would bring plans, and we'd go, no, too expensive. And they'd bring plans and we'd go, that's cool, but too expensive. So we worked through that process, developed a master plan. It was approved by the elder board, and then said, okay, where's phase one? And that's where we got the building committee together. And those people put in a lot of work.
A lot of time.
It's amazing how you put people together, though, because on that committee was Scott and myself, Jen Garrett, who is an interior designer. So like I wear a uniform to work every day, and then on Fridays or like today, my wife dresses me, so I'm like a granimal dresser. But then Max on the building committee from an AV sound perspective, and then Mike Zayas. They don't go to church here any longer, but Mike worked for a general contractor in Round Rock, and you talk about like God's hand. Because you got a paramedic and interior, all of us trying to figure out this. And Mike, that's what he does for a living. So it was awesome to have him over there going, that's normal, don't freak out. Okay, that's not abnormal, let's freak out a little bit. And this is what you need to say, this is what you need to do and stuff. So that process went on, and here we are in the building.
Yeah, amazing. 3 years that we've been in the building. So we did 10 years at the YMCA, portable. Thank God for the YMCA.
Yes.
God bless the YMCA for all that they've done for church over the last 15 years. And then 3 years here in the building. And so
crazy.
Yeah. And so 3 years after we get the building done, I guess you're itching to get back into eldering again.
So I got another phone call.
Can I take you to lunch?
Yeah, can I take you? I don't even think I got that because it's COVID, so you can't even have lunch. I just thought about that. Yeah. So, so John and Keith both called me independent, and they were really, so each year, we select 2 new elders to come onto the board. And so...
And we've had 2 new elders.
Yes, every year. Like I'm the first retread, as I like to say. So it's 2 new elders every year.
Right.
So a lot of those elders they didn't know that we were Hill Country Bible Church Round Rock North.
Sure.
So it's funny. So I'm the retread, and I've got all the history, as I like to say. So the only person that's been on that board that long is Keith. Everybody else is brand new, and the guys that I serve with on the board now weren't here at the original time. So part of the reason for me coming back on was some of that history, and it's funny, we were having the discussion as we did we were looking at the data from the churchwide health survey, and we're looking at the age, the demographics, the age, and we're having the conversation. Part of the conversation is how do we attract younger people, and I chuckled, and I said, 12 years ago, we had the conversation of how do we attract older people, and everybody's like, what? And Keith and I are like, that was that conversation. So I'm excited to serve back on the elder board. It's different now than it was, and I have to remember that. When I previously served on it, it's all hands on deck. You were I like to say you were kind of the unpaid staff. And
that's right.
But it's a different role now,
different
and
feel,
shepherding the flock, and then also just it's a lot of helping Keith process through long-term strategy stuff.
For sure.
And as I like to say, making sure that we're not getting in God's way.
Yeah, that's good. I can't wait for our next copy machine battle. Discussion.
I shouldn't have shared that with you. I should have waited. I think that's in a couple of weeks when you come in.
It was so good. So good. No, but I thought for just a quick second I'd button up something that you mentioned in case there's folks who are here who've only ever known us as Cityview, because we were Cityview for 2 years at the Y and Cityview now for 3 years. So we've only been Cityview for 5 years. Mike mentioned it, but when we were launched in 2007, we launched as a daughter church of Hill Country Bible Church, Pflugerville. And Hill Country Bible Church, Pflugerville is, and we are too, a part of a large association of churches in Austin called the Association of Hill Country Churches. And we were kind of the last of a dying breed, honestly. We were kind of the last launch that was in the Austin Metro proper that launched as Hill Country Bible Church and then location. And so we were Hill Country Bible Church, Round Rock, north.
Yeah, write that on your given check.
Oh, it was rough. I always laugh because our URL and our email was like hcbcrrn.com.
Nobody will mess that up.
Nobody's going to get that wrong. hcbcrrn.com. So anyway, we changed to Cityview to kind of clarify our vision for the city and clarify that this is what we have. We have a view of the whole city.
Yeah, it was. I thought that was a great process we went through because you guys came out here because we had purchased the land at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember y'all coming back and going, we stood out on the land. We have a view of the city. City view.
Yeah.
And so, it was awesome.
Yeah, we had iterated on so many different names and thought processes and all that kind of stuff. But we ended up in City View as our name, but we're still a part of the Association of Hill Country Churches. Hill Country Pflugerville is still our mother church, and Hill Country Austin is still our grandmother church, and we have folks from our charter who came from both of those churches. And so anyway, that's kind of the process in case you were like, what is he talking about? People didn't know them as Cityview.
Yeah.
We did change names. It was a thing too to change names, and I wouldn't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So one thing that's really interesting about your story, Mike, and thanks for sharing about the building process. And so let me encourage you, if you see Mike, when we do get back together after maybe COVID kind of phases out a little bit and we phase back into meeting, make sure you just thank him for what he's done. And if you got questions about something in the building, Mike probably knows at least why we made that decision or where it came from and what thought processes were going on in our mind when we were kind of poking around at stuff. And my guess is as the next 3 years unfolds and we see what God does with this facility and what may be next for us, you'll be part of that discussion as an elder as well. But one thing that we kind of mentioned in passing early, but is really interesting about your story is in the middle of all that, building committee, land acquisition, adopting 2 daughters, like you guys really got serious about Financial Peace University. Really got serious that you call yourself a nerd, which is a term of endearment in Dave Ramsey's world. But, you got really serious about Dave Ramsey and his process, and that's become a passion of yours.
Yeah. So Heather and I got married, and we were high school sweethearts. You think you know everything about somebody. So we were married. 2 years into marriage, you kind of have the natural discussion about, okay, when are we going to have kids and how many kids, all that stuff. And I learned something about my wife. So at the time, I'm working full-time as a paramedic with Williamson County. I'm also a nurse, so I'm working part-time as a nurse in a local emergency room. She's a full-time teacher with Round Rock ISD. And so, we got money coming in, we got money going out, we got, a couple of car payments, a house payment, and go figure they let us borrow on the couch that we bought. And, because we moved into a house and we don't have anything. So, they give it to you for free for 90,000 months. So we did all that. And then Heather said, well, yeah, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And so in my head, I'd already processed through like, okay, we went through some fertility issues. Like, I'm a bit of a workaholic. I'll be the first to admit it. So I'm going to give up my part-time job. I'll just have my full-time job. She's got her full-time job. And when she said that in my head, I went into childhood freak-out mode. Like, and because I immediately am thinking in my head, one income, and we can't do this. Like, we have got too much junk going out when we're paying payments. So that's not a good place to be in childhood freak out mode with your wife. There's a reason that finances are one of the top 4 things.
You should teach marriage classes. It's not good to be in childhood freak out mode.
It isn't, and you're not. For me, I wasn't the man that I wanted to be. To be quite honest with you. So what any good Christian does, I Googled, oh crud, I'm in financial hurt, and Dave Ramsey came up, and I was so cheap at the time. I went to the library and not bought. You don't buy from the library. I leased, got out, whatever, the Total Money Makeover. They
call it borrow. Borrowed.
Yeah. See, I can't even say borrow.
I know, because the borrower is slave to the lender. I
shouldn't even say lease. I borrowed the book, and I read it over a couple of days, and I told Heather, I was like, you need to read this book. Now, my wife doesn't read a nonfiction book one.
Yeah.
And so I said, please read it. And she read it, and she goes, we need to do this. And so, because she saw my childhood freak out and didn't like that either. So we started on the plan, and we were kind of sort of doing it. And then we went through a class and we like drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. So yeah, probably that $2 charge you heard me fussing about was me cutting cable or some crazy thing like that.
So great.
But I remember making the deal with Heather. I'll get emotional again. This is that word. Whew. Anyway, I made a deal with her. I said, here's the deal. I'm going to quit nursing. I'm still doing full time. You can stay home for 2 years. You want to do this stay-at-home mom thing. And you can stay at home for a couple of years because we can make it that long. Because, be frank, junk was more important than that. Kids and money, I get emotional. There you go. So anyway, I made that deal with her, and my wife's smart. She goes, yeah, you bet, 2 years. So my wife still stays at home. So she got me on that one.
15 years later.
Yeah, 15 years later. But the reason I get emotional about that is because it puts me in that spot where I felt like I couldn't serve her. So anyway, we walked through that process. We get all out crazy. Pay off the cars. We pay off our house. And then we think, okay, we're living over in Stone Oak at the time. And, I'm a planner by nature, and I'm like, okay, well, we're probably going to want to move out of this house. So, we start saving, and then, we use Mac as our real estate agent, and we purchase our next house, and we're able to pay cash for that. So, yeah, we're those crazy people that don't have any debt and have drawn the line and said, we're not going to have debt again in our lives. And it's, Heather and I may fuss at each other about some stuff, but one thing we don't fuss at each other about is finances. And as I say, it's one of the big four things that destroys a marriage. And for me, don't let a piece of paper, a dollar bill, destroy your marriage. There's resources out there. We'll walk alongside you. But it is a huge stressor, especially this time. All of that can be a huge stressor for folks. So, I have a bit of a passion for personal finance and shepherding and helping people through that because we've all screwed it up. If you're an adult, if you're a kid, if you're an adult, you screwed it up.
Yeah, that's right.
There's grace, there's forgiveness. Let's move on down the road. And there's tools and there's things that you can work on, and we can help you through that.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, and I would say the same thing. I know you're talking to people and teaching them even through what you're saying, but I would say the same thing we said about like if you're hearing us today talk about financial stress. And whether this is today, meaning February of 2021, or you're hearing this in the fall or the spring next year, and you're hearing it and you're thinking, man, I'm just messed up. Just call us because we would love to talk to you about it and, comment on this post or comment on this YouTube or comment on the Facebook or just call us somehow and let us know because it's not altogether uncommon for us to have an FPU class running. Yeah. Pre-COVID, we were doing 1 or 2 a year. Yeah. And I love doing them. Yeah. There's no accountability like doing an FPU class for myself. Not. So, and you learn so much out of it. And the classes that I've led, people learn finances. I mean, it's 4th grade math. You'll learn that. What you get out of it, though, if you're a single, you become empowered. If you're a married couple, you learn to communicate, and as in re-engage, it's all about communication and getting on the same page. And FPU or your finances are a huge part of that. So hopefully once we get past the post-COVID stuff, we'll get back into doing FPU classes. I can't imagine that we wouldn't have another one. Either this spring semester or the summer. Like there's bound to be an FPU. Cooking up in our minds somewhere. So definitely recommend that. I heard something on, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and I heard somebody say this, and I know you'll resonate with it, that it's not like a couple of decisions and immediately everything's changed. It's small right decisions over time. And when those are consistently put in place, you look back and see Wow.
Yeah.
Some massive change has happened.
Yeah, that's why I love FPU or Dave Ramsey's plan of the baby steps. It is baby steps. You focus. We tend to do, our conversation. We're all over the place.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to focus on stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if it's not written down, don't do it.
Yeah,
all that
and,
stuff.
I always tell people, it took you years to get there. It's going to take you a while to get out. So it's a crock pot, not a microwave. But yeah.
But you've taught courses here at Cityview. You've taught courses at other churches. You've taught courses up at work.
Yeah, at my work. Yeah, we So I've taught I've taught classes here. We did a big push a few years ago. We were actually still in the Y, where everybody in the church went through FPU and paid off a crazy amount of debt and stuff. It was awesome. I had the opportunity to teach it through work, did classes, and it wasn't just for my department. It was for like countywide. You just sign up for the class, and I was able to facilitate that. And
did you and Heather, high school sweethearts in a small town, Lexington, Texas, did you ever imagine, as you guys were getting married, you'd pay off a house and pay cash for another one?
Yeah, no, absolutely
not on your radar. And so
yeah.
I would just say anybody can do that.
Yeah, and like anybody can do it. Like I always tell people, we went from 2.5 incomes to 1, and we're able to do it. It was just that, we focused. Looking back, it seems easy. At the time, it was hard.
And you adopted a couple of kids, and you helped us build a building. My word.
But it can be done.
You're an inspiration.
That's my encouragement to people, is it can be done.
That's good. That's good. Well, I tell you, we're going to wrap up here in just a second, but I can't have somebody who's been around Cityview for 14, 15 years and not just say, hey, give us one of the memories you have that stands out when you're telling party stories and you're laughing about something. Oh, man. What jumps into your mind other than fights over the copy machine? Yeah. I keep calling it a fight or a battle. It really wasn't. Yeah. It was the right questions to be asking about very detailed questions on the lease.
Yeah. And as Douglas shared way back when, we were at a different spot. You were just huh.
Yeah.
Wow. There are lots of good memories.
Yes.
I can remember moving into the office over off of Mays, and Stacy Fox and I packing Keith's heavy old desk upstairs. To when I was on the elder board. This is my first introduction. I'm on the elder board, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go on a retreat." And man, in my head, I'm thinking we're playing golf or tennis or something, you know? And they're like, okay, meet at the church office off of Mays. And I'm like, all right, meet at the church office. And I go up there, and the room upstairs generally ran about 97 degrees. It was just hot.
We used to have worship rehearsal up there. It was awful.
Yeah, you had. And so we're sitting up there, and we start working on the budget for next year. Yeah. And we work on that thing until 3 a.m. And then Toby Dickinson, who was on the board at the time, goes, all right, see y'all back here at 6:30. And I'm like, when are we playing golf? Where's the team building time?
When is the board retreating?
Yeah, and we got back there at 6:30 and worked on budget again and planning and stuff. So that was, kind of funny story. And they're serious. We work around here. We don't play. So that was one. The moves going into the Y. I shared the story about the all-nighter. That was horrible at the time, but just to see the teamwork of everybody coming together was just awesome. That sticks in my mind. Obviously, walking the land, burning the note I will never forget that. Get emotional again. The big tent worship.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, that was awesome. Getting into the building. And just, I can remember sitting in the little job shack out there, all the meetings that we had out there, and fussing at the contractor and fussing at each other. But it was fun as we went through it, and those are the things that I will certainly never forget. Yeah. Obviously, as we adopted our two, and even Ava, all of my kids were dedicated here in this church, have grown up in this church. It's like the only church they know.
Yeah.
So awesome
good.
To see.
It's home for them.
Yeah. It's home for us.
It's home for us. Yeah. That's so good.
But I'm always scared. We're a church planting church. Yeah. And that's a good thing.
It is. It is.
And so if somebody asks you, consider going with the next church plant, don't say no.
That's right.
Think about it. Pray
about it. That's right. That's right. And if you know somebody who might want a church plant, who might want to be a church
please let us
planter,
know on
send
that.
them our way.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for our next church planter, actively
Yes.
looking for our next church planter. No, that's good, Mike. We're like I said, we're going to wrap up, but something hit my mind thinking about memories between the two of us. You and I traveled to Cuba together one time, and
A Caribbean country.
oh, well, that's true. We can say it now.
Okay, we can now.
say it now.
Yes.
It's okay now. But we traveled to Cuba together
Yes.
back when we couldn't say it,
Yeah.
and had to travel through Mexico and all that fun stuff that we did. But yeah, just think about all the different things that like we've experienced. Our circles don't cross a ton with worship, and they'll cross more now as
Yeah.
I've moved to the executive pastor role. But
between-
when they did at Cuba and
Cuba,
small group and things like
small,
that. It's been good.
I'd forgotten about small. I can remember Keith Ferguson walking into my living room, just sitting down on the couch and going, oh, he was just exhausted because he's Keith, he's a
Grinding,
driver and just doing all that. But a small group at our house and vision nights in the backyards of people's houses.
I know.
And coffee at at the various Starbucks you were at.
Making it happen. No, man, I appreciate you a lot. You inspire me. You're helpful, and man, just you're so wise. So
thank you. Same back to you. Part of me, I was, as the elder board, as we were looking at Douglas's transition to the executive pastor role, part of me is like inside going, oh no. Like I've become so accustomed and appreciate and enjoy and love your voice. And it's not just that, but I know the work that you do with the worship team, with the AV team. You're an encourager. You're a builder. You believe in perfection because you know that represents God, and so I appreciate that about you too. So all of that to say, part of me was like, oh no, if I vote for this, that means that there's going to be somebody new up there. But then I'm thinking, no, Douglas is going to have the same drive with that person. So
that's good.
Same back to you. I appreciate.
Thanks,
all
Mike.
you do.
I really appreciate that encouragement. Thank you so much. So, thanks for coming out tonight.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
It's been fun.
So Cityview, thanks for listening to us. Thanks for catching up with another episode of the Sit Down. Hope you get a little better flavor for who Mike Knipstein is, our newest elder and one of our oldest elders.
Ouch.
No, I don't mean it that way. We got other elders that are elder than you. So it's all good. No, thanks for joining us and checking in. Hey, if you're listening to us right here in the month of February of 2021, stay tuned. We've got some great information coming in the next several weeks about hopefully getting back into a gathering rhythm and getting some more folks on our campus, creating some more capacity. And so check out our website anytime, cityviewbible.org. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube as well. Catch us on Sunday mornings and catch the Sit Down every Wednesday. And so we're glad to do this and get you acquainted with the folks who make Cityview the family that Mike talked about. So again, thanks for listening to us. We look forward to meeting you soon. My name is Douglas Hallam, and I will see you very soon. Love you.